So you walk into a family party or an event or something like that, and everybody gets quiet. They start treating you differently. They start acting differently. They don't really come up to you and talk to you. They may give you a little gratuitous hug, but something has shifted and you don't know what it is, but you have a pretty fair idea. So, in this video, what I'm going to be talking about is the anatomy of a smear campaign, what narcissistic people use all the time to stay in the superior position. And I'm going to be talking about why they do this and then what you can do about it. I'm Dr. Meg Haworth. I'm a transpersonal psychologist, holistic nutritional chef, and best-selling author. And I'm the founder of Love School Online Holistic Academy, helping wounded icons, adult children of narcissists, to become healed icons. And an icon is somebody who's independent, confident, original, and naturally you. So, like I said in this video, we're going to be talking about smear campaigns and why do narcissistic people use smear campaigns? And they are a very common tactic that narcissistic people use, narcissistic parents use against their own children. Siblings use it against their sisters or brothers, aunts and uncles. People in the extended family system may be using smear campaigns to belittle you, shame you, and push you out. And you'll feel it. You'll know it. Like I said, you'll be walking into a family event and people are treating you very differently. And you're wondering, what are they saying about me now? What story are they not checking out with me? Because the narcissistic person is so good at manipulating and controlling people into thinking something happened that didn't actually happen. So one of the reasons why a narcissistic person, narcissistic parent or family member uses a smear campaign is to divide you from other people. It's in the division that they gain a lot more control over the narrative. They always want control over the story because guess what? Their whole life is a false narrative. Their whole life is a fantasy that they have made up and sold as reality. And the second that you don't buy into that reality and you start playing the role differently than how they want you to play the role, you're in trouble. And then you may be the subject of the smear campaign. And the smear campaign really is a lot of gossip about you, a lot of stories being spun about you that simply aren't true, or they might have twisted something that other people did see. Like, hey, you got a little drunk at a family wedding, and then they twisted that and made it sound even worse than what it actually was. So everyone else was drunk too. But they'll take that and they'll twist it to their advantage to make you look bad, to keep you divided from other people. And those people aren't going to check out those stories with you because they're uncomfortable. A lot of times the stories they make up are pretty extreme. And the people who were told the stories about you, the gossip, those stories were actually really uncomfortable and you don't want to check it out with the person. So you don't. So you just maybe even pass on the same stories to other people as if they were true when you never bothered to find out what the real truth was because you didn't think that that person who is narcissistic and manipulative and conning you for years, you never thought that they would be like that. It just didn't occur to you because you don't know what goes on underneath the surface of being in a narcissistic family system and how debilitating it can be, especially for the scapegoated child, the invisible child. These roles that you were placed in are roles that will keep you in this kind of manipulative flow that is a constant in narcissistic family systems. And if you're the scapegoat, invisible child, all these stories are going to be made up about you and sold to everyone else as facts when they're absolutely fiction. And that comes again from the narcissistic person who are often operating from envy and jealousy, see everything as a competition. They see everything you do or say as an attack. So these aren't people that are going to be supportive of you in the first place. Now, another reason that narcissistic parents, narcissistic family members will initiate a smear campaign is because they're trying to turn others against you because you shattered their illusion, you shattered their fantasy, and took them out of their made up reality by pointing out the truth. You're a truth teller and you pointed out the truth, or you had an emotion that they were having a very hard time experiencing because it might push up against their need. It might push up against their shame because they're always looking for ways to not push up against their shame. And so if there's some piece of truth that they just don't want to admit to, they don't want to accept accountability for anything that they've done or any ways that they may have hurt you or wronged you. These relationships do not act or react as a normal, healthy relationship would, could, or should. They don't, because these made up realities, once they're shattered, they go in, the narcissistic person goes into narcissistic injury. Now they're injured and you're the problem. And so when you become the problem, the solution for them is to go basically trash you to everybody else. And I want to make a big distinction here about there's a huge difference between going to a friend, a trusted friend, somebody you really love and care about, or a therapist or anybody, and talking about what happened with somebody else, something that's going on in a relationship or the way you've been treated. And you're doing it to process, and you're doing it to actually learn something from the experience and learn something from the conversation. There's a big difference between that self-examination and processing things with a friend and going out there and literally smearing this person and making them seem like they're horrible people and they've done something horribly wrong, because you're using that as a manipulative tool to turn other people against that person. And you may have been, the victim of a smear campaign. I certainly know I have been. And it can be a really disconcerting place to be in because you don't often know what you did, what you said. They won't ever tell you. But these stories are circulating around and you can feel it and you know it. And maybe they're even trying to push you out of the family system and get to that place where you are not included in things anymore, not invited. You're not. They're clearly making that wall. It's not a boundary. It's not the same as a boundary. It is a wall to keep you out, to push you out, and keep you away. And so that's a very horrible and uncomfortable place to be in. Another reason that a narcissistic person, a narcissistic family member, parent, sibling do the smear campaign is that they need to stay in the superior position and need to send the message to you that you're in the inferior position and you need to remember your place. You need to remember your role, and you need to remember that you're supposed to act the way I want you to act and not just be yourself. So when being yourself is uncomfortable to them, they make it very, very uncomfortable for you. So that makes you just want to kind of leave the family system, doesn't it? And a lot of people do this. A lot of people do go no contact or very low contact because they know they can't continue dealing with these abuse. This is outright abuse, 100% abuse. They're abusing you purposely to tear you down and to make you look like you are a problem when you're probably not at all the problem. Here are some manipulation tactics that they use, different types of smear campaigns that are out there that a narcissistic family member, a narcissistic sibling, narcissistic parent uses to take you down with. And so here's the slow takedown. Slow takedowns are very calculated and they happen over time. And so this may look like a narcissistic family member, maybe Uncle John is saying to a niece or nephew, they start to drop in little thoughts into their head about what's wrong with Aunt Sally. And so, oh yeah, did you notice how she can be really critical? Did you notice how she can be really aloof? Did you notice how she could be really, it's going to be some sort of negative attribute that they start to just drop in these little ideas into your head, and then you start to look for them. So you start to look for the problem. Oh, wow, that's the problem. Yeah, Aunt Sally does that. She does. Oh, she does do that. I never noticed that before. And so this is the way that they are slowly wearing away at your own perception. They're wearing away at your own good judgment about Aunt Sally. And then you start to have that division between you and Aunt Sally that wasn't there before. And you may have actually really loved and adored Aunt Sally, but now you're starting to see her differently because that narcissistic family member started to plant the seeds of destruction. These are the seeds of abuse and the seeds of the smear campaign, where you get to a point where Uncle John may eventually say, all right, well, I'm going to swear you to secrecy on this one, but did you know that Aunt Sally, and then they tell you this big impossible story about something that they did that they probably never did, or they did some version of that, but it wasn't at all what they're sharing in the smear campaign. And so now you're really seeing Aunt Sally as the outsider. And so she's on the outside, you're still on the inside because you're believing, you're buying what this narcissistic family member is saying about this person who you actually used to love and adore. And now you're like, oh no. So that type of smear campaign, that slow burn that they use, is calculated, it is intentional, it is destructive. And if you start to think about, like, wow, you know what? Somebody in the family was doing that with me. Huh. Oh, yeah. And they did swear me to secrecy. So maybe you want to go back to Aunt Sally and say, hey, did this happen? Or can you just explain to me, like, what happened on your side of that story? Because like, if things like light bulbs are going off for you right now, ding, 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 and you're in a situation like this, maybe you can unwind it. Maybe you can go back and repair that relationship if you're not narcissistic. And my guess is that you're not, or you wouldn't have clicked on this video. And speaking of clicking on the video, thank you so much for watching these videos. And also, please subscribe to my channel so you can get more of these videos. And be sure to hit the like button and make a comment. I'd love to hear about your own stories of the smear campaign and what you did and what was done to you. It's such just a common narcissistic abuse tactic, and it's really, really uncomfortable to live through. And another way that narcissistic family members, parents, siblings, extended family members will initiate the smear campaign is by creating an escalated story or an exaggerated story that they twist. And I alluded to this just a couple of minutes ago in this video, that they twist into something it never was in the first place. But the twist is always going to include something that makes that person that they're smearing, makes them look really bad, and makes them look so bad that you may not want to have contact with them. Your perception of them will now shift dramatically. It's almost like you're being included in some sort of big betrayal story that never happened, and it certainly never happened to you. But now you're on the narcissistic person's side, operating on their behalf, basically, and just believing them, and just like you're taking a side with them. But that's what they want you to do. They want you to side with the narcissistic person that you may not even have clocked as narcissistic, but they're so good at manipulating and doing these things in the background. And that includes the smear campaign. It can be very subtle. It can be very overt. But really, you kind of look around and see who's the person who's always talking about other people versus talking about politics or what's going on in the world today, or what they've been examining in their own lives, their own personal evolution, or something that's really meaningful and deep and interesting, like a book they've been reading. This is not what you typically find from narcissistic people, they tend to be very much engaged in external conversation about external things because that's how they think. They live in the external. The internal world is not something that they relate to or want to relate to because that would mean introspection. That would mean self-reflection. And those are things that you're not going to find from a narcissistic person. Now, here are some things that you can do if you have been the brunt of a smear campaign in your narcissistic family system. One, and this is a hard one, don't take this personally because it's not about you. It is all about the narcissistic person. And what often happens in these families is that over time, people start to wake up and see the manipulative tactics that they're using in all these other different ways. And then they start to kind of review things, especially if they get into therapy and start to really learn about the family system and what their part was in it, what your role was in it. When you start to do more self-examination, you might start to notice places where you were a part of a smear campaign, fully believing the narcissistic person, fully being conned by them into their manipulative tactics about somebody else in your family system, or maybe it was a family friend, or it could be anybody. They will smear anybody who they think is a threat to them. It's always going to be ultimately about that. Another thing that you can do if you are the victim of a smear campaign in your narcissistic family system is to refocus your attention. Because what can happen when you know that you are the victim of a smear campaign is that you may be searching and ruminating and trying to figure out what did they say? What did they say about me? What are they thinking about me? Why did they just suddenly ghost me? Why are they acting all cold and weird and aloof with me? You're trying to figure out what happened. You're trying to figure out what story might be told about you. And what happens is that this puts you in your head and it exhausts you. It keeps you out of your heart. It keeps you out of your intuitive nature. And so when you learn to focus on the love in the room, focus on the person or the people that are really there for you, that really care about you, are really supportive of you. And if you don't have this kind of network, you need to find one. A supportive, caring, loving network of people is going to be an incredibly healing part of your journey of healing from narcissistic abuse and from these family systems and from these smear campaigns. It's so debilitating and heartbreaking what people do to each other in these family systems. And they keep passing this stuff down from generation to generation. The smear campaign, the gossiping, the cruelty, the made up stories, the BS, all of it is just overwhelming. Focusing on the love in the room, go where the love is, go where the love is. It's going to be a really important part of your healing process. Okay, another thing that you can do to heal from the wounds, the major wounds inflicted by these smear campaigns, is to focus on you. And this is the key to healing from narcissistic abuse of all kinds. Focusing on yourself is going to be one of the most important things that you will do for you. Doing the work of individuating, becoming the individual you were always meant to be. It's in your individuality that you are the biggest threat to the narcissistic people in your family system. And it's in your individuality that you are actually set free from the role that you played in your family system that was given to you. And you unconsciously played it until you became conscious of it. And now you're unwinding that. And part of that is becoming the individual you were meant to be, that icon in your own life, that person who's independent, confident, original, and naturally you. And just look to the thing you can do right now is look to what are your qualities? What are your skills, your talents, your abilities, the best parts of you that you brought into this world? And you may have to look back into your childhood and look at, what did you escape into your room to do? With your narcissistic family, you were just trying to get away from all the noise and the smear campaigns. And you were trying to get away from the put downs and the criticism and the shaming and the blaming and the screaming and the the anger and the rage, and so what did you do for you? So that's something that you can do right now, is really look at, what are my qualities? What are the best parts of me? Because it's from those original parts of you that you answer those big questions, like, who am I? Why am I here? And what's the purpose of my life? That's what matters most. Self-focusing, not in a narcissistic way, but in a self-loving way that builds yourself up, builds your self-esteem, your self-worth, your value, and your work in the world, whatever that might be. And it's a really important part. In fact, it is the way you heal from this, is to individuate and become you, who you were always meant to be. And another big thing that you're going to need to do as you go through healing from smear campaigns and the way you've been treated, or if you were pushed out of your family, if you were ghosted by family members, or if you were ghosted by your narcissistic parent, it was probably because you pointed out stuff that they didn't want to see. You held up that mirror that was like, no, I don't want to look in that. It's too painful. And so you had to go down in that process of their inability to admit what the problem was. And so one of the big things that you're going to need to do, and this is one of the hardest parts of this, but it's so important, is to go through the grief and loss of this family that never really was what you thought it was. You have to go through the grief and loss of this fantasy world that was created by the narcissistic people in your family system, and that the way you had to participate in it, what you were required to do was really kind of put yourself in the background, give up self, abandon self, and then show up in the way that you were expected to, that you were told to. It's really painful when you look at all of that, but going through that grief, and it can be gut-wrenching. It can be really difficult to see this whole thing that you've been going through all of these years, but it's such an important part of the process. So if this information has been helpful for you today, and you're interested in learning more about the holistic work that I do and helping people heal holistically from the wounds of parental narcissistic abuse, mentally, emotionally, physically, energetically, and spiritually, then please look into my Love School Online Holistic Academy. I'd love to talk to you and see if you might be a good fit. You can apply in the links below to speak to me for free, and see if we might be a good fit to help you with your healing, because it's what I know and what I see over and over again with a narcissistic parent and family system, is that if you don't do the healing work, it will just keep perpetuating, and things get worse and worse internally for you. And you become harder on yourself, more cruel, more isolated, all of the things that the narcissistic parent programmed you to do. So I hope this video has been helpful for you, and you can always talk to me, and please share it, like it, all those good things. I really appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this information will help you get well now.